So my first thoughts were just, what did you actually think about the aspect that it was in CS2? Like, did it seem like it was much different? Did it feel like CSGO to you? Did you think actually generally the good players were good and the bad players were good? Did you seem like the bogs affected things? What was your sense in that regard?
I would say, first of all, it wasn't as scuffed as I thought it would be. I think I had a very, very gross fear and apprehension of what the Counter-Strike would be
Right.
there. Like, as we talked about, mixed and meshed with bugs and whatever, it felt like they kind of dodged the main parts on that one. I will say I could definitely see it was different than CSGO. It was right in front of my face, couldn't ignore it. I think the level in general was relatively low, and I think it is what we had expected. It's I think for the show, the meta and how CS2 is actually currently played, it made up for entertaining games, and it's like kind of electric. And as a viewer, as a spectator, I enjoyed it. But I have to say that definitely there were a few issues. Like, individuals are definitely not all up to the level, and some teams were a little bit ahead of others. So I don't know. I think overall this was better than what I had anticipated, because I was very much apprehending this one. But yeah, it definitely not CS:GO. Definitely not.
Because that was the weirdest thing to me, is like, if I actually just look on the Wikipedia, you could even think this was just CSGO. Like, in general, the only obvious crazy one was complexity. But even then, they have
Mm.
sort of been simmering. They've been getting better and better and better as things go. And that's what's weird to me. I almost feel like part of me wants to tell everyone it's CS2. So let's like lower all expectations. Let's not overreact to these results. Let's get like a few tournaments around when they will really know, like, was it a fluke? Was it not? But part of me also did feel at the same time like the fundamentals of CS are the same. It is like CSGO, but then again, at the same time, like, for example, here's what's funny. When you talk about FaZe Clan, if you look at the FaZe Clan numbers, it actually looks like a normal FaZe Clan with Maniac. Like, if you
Right.
notice, almost every time they win, if people don't know, I think there's only one time ever that they won when Rain didn't have, like, the overperformance. If people don't know, it's actually, this is why I actually push back on the idea that, like, when people say Carrigan has a super team, it's like maybe in past teams, those are super team players who every tournament would do the 1.25 rating. But now, actually, they do it by committee, as in, like, one guy has an off game and then Rops has that carry game and then Brokey has an amazing map on this one. So they usually, what to me, actually, it's the Rain, like, overperformance at the major or the Cologne, where that's usually what puts you over the top and makes you like the champion. So that part makes sense. But then, for example, I have to say, if someone's a newer fan and you're like, you wanted to hear what was the first CS2 tournament like, I have to say it did look, though, like people like Carrigan and FaZe have put in some hours on some of the new things in CS2, like some of the different grenades and how you use the smoke stuff. And that did feel different from, the team that we saw.
Yes.
I mean, because here's the reason I'm bringing this up, Maniac, because an initial topic is, if FaZe wins the tournament, we can't just say it was like CSGO, because the narrative everyone had in CSGO was maybe FaZe is winding down and the lineup
Of
doesn't
course.
work. And, should Rain be kicked? Should they change a player? Should you gamble and go for someone? That was kind of the angle people were setting up. So I almost feel like that narrative, I can't fully connect it in the same way, because, like I say, I do feel as though one of the things people complained about with the old FaZe is some people, like I know Casado on my Hot Take Point Made Show thought this. He often thought that essentially, whether you blame Carrigan for this or not, that a lot of the problem with FaZe was they almost played like a stereotypical international loose team, and that he thought actually they didn't sometimes have the new nades and the new grenades and stuff that, like, even if I don't like them, teams like Fury would invent a new smoke grenade, or we all know the heroics of the world always had on new. What did you get in that sense? I got a sense actually like FaZe did put in the homework on this one, mate.
Um, well, first of all, I would say I think tactically we are pretty much at a baseline level right now when it comes to CS2. Like, I haven't sure teams have probably put a whole lot of effort into thinking, when can we use the grenade to break the smoke? When is the moment this can
Yes.
change? But I still believe that there is a long, long way to go in like optimizing this. I think FaZe were up there in the usage of that. But what I think personally is that in the context of this event, in like this snapshot in time, I think the lineup was very well positioned for that transition to CS2. Because on one hand, you have Robs, who's very obviously put a whole lot of effort into it,
Sure.
trying to understand how the game is being played,
Yes.
what can we do about it, what are sort of the implications of like the changes that have been made. And I think you could definitely see he was definitely confident and kind of competent with it. But also a man like Rain, the way I see it is, how does the meta either favor or unfavors a player's playstyle? And Rain said it himself. Like, he loves to go for these duels. He loves to like take speed, wide angles, go for duels. That's exactly what the meta is about right now. That's how the game is made. Like, we kept talking about the sound being a little bit scuffed, so you don't exactly know where people are in front of you. And then the wide peaks advantage, how hard it is to hold an angle. This is something that is absolutely perfect for him. So all of these things kind of put together, I feel like it really gave them a boost, like individually speaking, great performance. Even Brokey, if you think about it, Brokey not necessarily a top 3 AWPer in the world, but
Yes.
decent with the rifle, can be crazy, can be a little bit, jumping out of smokes and be chaotic and whatever. This is the perfect time to do it. So I think in this like kind of microcosm, the players were put in a very good position to shine and just overperform slightly compared to what they were doing past. And this is kind of the recipe for FaZe. As far as I'm concerned, this doesn't tell me that FaZe is out of the woods and it's going to be amazing in the next few months. Like we already hear about Twist and like there's reports that him going away from the team. I think this win was just but it was about a perfect storm for them, is where the game is at, how the players sync up with the state of the game, what meta is favored, how are the players comfortable with it. And when it came all together, it put them in a really great spot.
Yeah, actually, the other thing as well to me is this is why the rain topic is, I actually find as an analyst, it tortures me because the problem is people tie it into like how they feel as a fan about rain. So, and also, by the way, if people don't know, he's what you call, if you know the sporting term, he's like a player's player. Like the other players all respect him. It's actually why, if you ever hear, Carragher never thought about cutting him, and the other players all would be like, no, we've never cut like Havard, whatever his name is. He's a legend and a beast. But the problem is, as an analyst, your job sometimes really is, even if you're like number 3 in the world, to be like, actually, this is where you need to upgrade, and that could get you to number 1. Now, to a fan, it's like, so you don't believe in him, and he's got like, no. The point is, we just have to look at like how could you max a team out? And the problem with Rain obviously is he doesn't do this every tournament. Now, look, that's the problem. The fan will tell you he just does this all the time. Like, here's the thing: Maniac's definitely not a hater. He wouldn't ever say like, oh, maybe you could get, like a frozen in. He wouldn't say that if like Rain was posting like a 1.2 rating every event, would he? The point is he has events where he is a 1.04 or whatever, which look, isn't his fault. Like I say, if you had simple, but like prime simple, you'd probably get away with that. But on this team, it looks like to be the best FaZe, the one that blows you out, you do need like the 1.15, 1.2 rating Rain. And the thing is, this guy, it's a joke that we focus on the IGLs for the age thing, dude, because we go like Snappy and Carragher, what age is just a number? They're just using their brains though, guys. Like the thing with Rain is, this guy's really old. I don't know if any player this old had just like, it almost looks like his raw skill didn't decay much. It did decay a bit, guys. When he used to play as the star with like the Alu lineup in FaZe, he was definitely better than this. Like that was where every tournament he was like almost their MVP, as it were. So he has degraded. But like the thing that gave it away on this tournament for me is, mate, right? Normally, if it was just like you're giving him the MVP because of impact, here's the thing. Logically, that would be like, oh, you overperformed there, like T-side. He got a bunch of entries. He was playing like a bit. No. If you go and look, dude, he's like the 8th or 9th best CT rated player at the tournament, which is like CT that, I don't know if you know this, guys. One, he's definitely not getting all the best spots, except for certain maps, like obviously on Nuke, and he's a classic on that one. That's like one of the rare positions he has. That's like a big fragger position. But aside from that, like CT side essentially is just a measure of skill. Like most of the time in that scenario, that's actually where I've always thought, if you go and look, that's where the Nikos, the Zerus, they should basically perform there almost no matter what happens, because they can just get their frags. Like you sit in your spot, you take your fights, you take, it's almost like playing DM. So that's the part that's very impressive to me. Is like everyone likes to praise other players when they roll back the years, but they do it for a match or whatever. Like what's weird is even if he doesn't do it every tournament, let's say he does it like 1 every 4 tournaments, that in itself is blowing my mind, dude. Like this is why in a way he's almost like an outlier to whatever rule I have about dropping off and decay or something, because I have to say the player that did that there, I mean, I used to have this joke when someone had one good match, but now it should apply. This tournament, like that should have bought him another 3 months at least, like maybe another 6 months. You've got to give him a crack, haven't you? If you play like that as the 4th man, how can I kick you now? I've got to keep you. I've got to see if you can do it again, haven't I?
No, definitely. I think he's made a really good case for himself. I also think, as I said, that the current state of the game suits him very well. Like if you think about how even the impact you're talking about on the CT side, Rain is someone that gets into the duel. Like he's not a off-angle waiter that gets into a multi-kill the way Robs would do it, for example. If you look at Robs' POV, he's usually waiting in the right angle and he gets that free kill and repositions a little bit. Rain is more of a in-your-face type guy. Like, this is my position. I'm going to ask for a flash and I'm going to white swing. You talk about Nuke outside. He does that. Overpass, notoriously aggressive on how he plays the CT side. That's how the game is being played currently. And what if the game remains in that vein for a while, that maybe he could fucking dominate? Because that's exactly what he likes to do. Now, this kind of segues me to the next topic, which I believe is an issue currently, is that I feel like off angles are not being rewarded enough in CS2, and that's something.
Because advantage is too good.
Yeah, exactly. The picker is not just way too good. Like this used to be about knowing and anticipating where your next duel is about to be, and then finding the right position for you to get that easy duel so you can turn it into a multi-kill. That's one of the reasons why we saw so little like stationary multi-kills on the CT side, because even if you had the right angle, it was so complicated to win the first duel that you would eventually get traded immediately. You never get one of these super like mega spray down. I mean, Twist had a couple of crazy moments, but even then he was moving. Like if you think about Vertigo, that 4K he's got on B side, he's not just waiting. Like he's turning around, he's getting angles, super mobile. That listen, I hope it's gonna get eventually a bit balanced out. Like I like that the game favors a bit of aggression and movement. It's cool, it's paceful, it's nice to watch. I hope it's gonna get fixed just a little bit. But yeah, for the moment, just like I think Rain had a very good time. Like I think you have 3 strong cases for MVP in that event. The fact that he gets it, I don't think is a tragedy. I think he's a very good candidate for MVP in that event.
Now, if people don't know, I actually have no qualms whatsoever. I've given him my MVP as well. Because the reason why is, like, look, the others, I can actually make almost an even case. So the reason why in this case I give it to him is because he basically almost stats-wise did do it. And then obviously he literally carried the last map that won the tournament. But then if you look at it, I know he's not doing that from all the best roles. And I know he's not getting all the resources. In fact, his job is to give other people resources sometimes. And actually, I'll tag on to what you said there as well. I'm going to add Rain. I've got a short list. There's not many people on this list, mate. And these are players. I have Apex on this list most famously. These are players where what I respect is, even as their game degrades, their confidence doesn't degrade. Like I always say about Apex, he actually loves it because no one ever gives him his fucking flowers, so he loves that I do this. I always say famously, the reason I always thought he was one of the best entries, might be the best entry ever in CS, is because even if he was going and peeking into prime simple with the AWP, he did it like he was peeking into Torji with an AWP now, and he thinks he can get the kill. He'll still just peek and go for the shot, and it always felt like he didn't get affected by the name. Everyone else, I've seen these motherfuckers when the first guy goes around the corner and dies as simple. Like, you see their brain go like, wait a minute, should I slow down? You know what I mean? Like they don't just fool around like it's a bug. And so I have to say, there's one thing about Rain that is crazy. This is why I can understand why the other players all like revere him so much. If you ever watch how he plays, dude, he never got the memo that his skills dropped off at all. He plays like his aim is AK is as crisp as it ever was. He goes straight to, like you say, he takes the duel. Because here's why I want to make this clear to people. This is so rare for any great player that's dropped off and gone to side roles. Use the old guy who used to be his best mate in the team, fucking Olaf Meister. At the end, it was depressing, dude. I remember 2015 Olaf Meister, who was a beast, mate. This was a monster rifler. He would try this. He would try and take those angles, minute, and you just get mopped up. Like, I'd see him take, like, a normal off angle, and it'd be like, normal Olaf Meister, get 3K there. He couldn't get the first kill sometimes. He was getting wide peaked by everyone. They were just clapping him. And then you just realise, well, actually, you know how the game goes in CS. Like, in CS, I always say, like, a year in esports, it feels like it's worth, like, 3 or 5 in real sports. Like, that's just what happens. You have to imagine, you have to think of Olaf Meister as a 40-year-old football player. Then, of course, he doesn't have the pace. Of course, he doesn't have the power anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there's only the joke here is in this analogy. I guess fucking Rain's Ronaldo or something. Like, he's still doing it. Like, still beasting. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, I actually just want to make an emphasis there. If people have watched a lot of our stuff over the years, this is why. Don't worry. If he has 3 bad tournaments, I'll have to bring the topic up again. What if that was Frozen or someone Maniac? But the problem is, I still love it when he does it. I still think it's the shit. It's just that because, by definition, if you're an outlier, I can't put that in my normal pattern, can I? You're defying my pattern recognition skills. To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.